Hello and welcome to North 100, a Canadian Highlander podcast. My name is Serge. Joining me today, I got a Nelly.
Hey, I'm here.
We got a Wheeler.
I have one drink.
And on tech, we got a James.
I have no drinks.
A reminder that all our drinks are brought to us by you with your support at the Patreon over at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. Hello and welcome to part one of our Aetherdrift set review. A reminder that our set reviews are not exhaustive. We talk about the cards that we think are relevant to the format. And we've also included a hand-picked artisanal selection of the Commander bangers. Let's jump right into it. Wheeler!
Basri, tomorrow's champion. For a single white, you get a 2/1 legendary creature that is a human knight with pay 1, tap, exert Basri. Create a 1/1 white cat token with lifelink. And Basri also has cycling for 2 and a white. When you cycle this card, cats you control gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. This is a 1-mana, 2-power creature in white that has a relevant creature type in the form of being a human. Is pretty good into Caracas because it's just a 1-drop anyways. Later on, when this body stops being so relevant, getting to make cats is pretty nice. Making tokens with lifelink, obviously synergizing pretty well with some of the messed up Modern Horizons cards that we've gotten with like Guide of Souls or Ocelot Pride, which is a Johnny. Yeah,
Johnny.
That's the second part, is that this cycling is like, maybe you don't want this, but also just mono white or even like white red or whatever, like you'll just have cats. The cycling here is mostly like, what if you draw 2 copies in your 60 card fork of deck or whatever? But like for us, it's like, well, I might have some cats running around and that can like be a blowout. But none of that matters because it's a 1 white, 2/1 legendary human with upside.
All right, next up, Nelly.
It's Bulwark Ox, 1 and a white for a 2/2 Ox mount with whenever this creature attacks while saddled, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. And saddle 1. And sacrifice this creature. Creatures you control with counters on them gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. So another sort of modified Luminarch Aspirant. Not going to get the +1/+1 counter the same turn it comes down, but it sort of pays for that with the bonus of protecting your creatures that have counters. So pretty obvious include in green-white +1/+1 counters. Yeah, I think most of your +1/+1 counters decks are going to want to feature this one with only a saddle cost of 1 and this like great flexibility of trading for removal spells, even mass removal spells in the +1/+1 counters deck.
This deck has so many 2-drops now. Like,
yeah, but it doesn't have to play any other creatures with higher mana costs, so that's nice.
I mean, yeah, I imagine this deck is like your 2s, some 3s.
Your 3s are like Siege Veteran and whatever the other 3 drop in.
Yeah, that other
+1/+1s.
The other saddle creature,
the
other
Tumblewag.
Yeah, Tumblewag, yeah.
And then maybe you play that new Gear Hulk because it finds
That
Guide
new
of Souls
Gear Hulk
also
is
on
so
Pride.
cracked, too,
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the +1/+1 counters deck really starting to get like a ton of options now.
I am curious about this card. I have such a hard time evaluating this as a mid-range card because it's not a Luminarch Aspirant, and it's also not a whatever the 2/1 fairy is that sacks and like protects your whole board. Like,
Selfless Spirit.
Selfless Spirit. Like, is it good enough by itself in that, or is it just for the +1/+1 deck?
I think if you have to jam this card against like every card in my deck needs to get some value against their 1-for-1 removal, it actually doesn't make the cut anymore. But the ceiling is really high.
Yeah,
So I imagine if you're playing, Ozoliths, you're gonna try this out.
So high synergy card, but not a good standalone. Right on. Next up, we have Light Wheel Enchantments. I'm glad I got this one. So it's a 1-mana aura for single white pip. Enchant creature or vehicle. And then we have Start Your Engines. This is the first time we've had to Start Your Engines, so I'll introduce it briefly. So whenever you control a Start Your Own permanent, it's not an ETB effect. It's actually a state-based action, which includes like stealing, like mind controlling your opponent's effect. You introduce speed. Speed can go up once per turn on your turn if you deal damage to your opponent. Yes, if you start your engines and deal damage on the first turn, you can get to 2 speed on the first turn. And then most cards that have Start Your Engines also have a max speed effect when you get to 4 speed. Enchanted permanent gets +1/+1 and has vigilance, and at max speed, you may cast this card from your graveyard. This is a redundant copy of Sentinel Eyes, which was a card that you could escape from your graveyard by exiling 2 cards. And I like this only exactly in a green-white Enchantress deck, or maybe like a 3-color, like a Sanctum Stompy deck. It does a great job of being a recurring way to make your creatures bigger. Not as good as Rancor, but similar to Rancor, like good redundancy. It's absolutely cracked if you have Setessan Champion or any other Enchantress. I don't think this is good enough to be seen play anywhere else, but it's really cool to get more redundancy in this, because you used to get a lot of like wild growth effects were the best thing you could have for Enchantress, like more 1-mana stuff, and now this, but proactive and aggressive, is good stuff.
It's really good with Oratog.
Unlike, yeah, it actually
Rancor and Oratog
I
as
wanted
well.
to
Yeah,
say
yeah.
because it does function a little bit different than Sentinelize. Sentinelize is limited on the number of cards that you can play to escape it.
Fair.
Whereas this thing just says max speed, and like once you have max speed, you always have max speed, right?
It's like Gravecrawler.
Unless
in
you
that
get
way,
Blue
right?
Shield.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
you can just keep paying a weight.
And
if
not
you're
to
sacking it.
actually Serge's explanation, but you said damage. This
Right.
counts life loss. So people are fetching for
in end steps.
surveil lands
Yeah.
in end
Yeah.
steps.
Yep.
So they get it untapped, and that can increment speed.
I'd be curious to get into like a deeper start your engines conversation at some point, because I don't know how to evaluate that in our format, but as an introduction, it's neat. I'm very curious.
In a vacuum. It just all the cards need to be evaluated by themselves,
Yeah.
not as a whole.
Right, of course.
Yeah.
All right, next up.
Voyager Glide Car, 1 white for a 2/3 artifact vehicle. When this vehicle enters Scry 1 and tap 3 other untapped creatures to control until end of turn, this vehicle becomes an artifact creature and gains flying. Put a 1/1 counter on it. Crew 1. Usually when they have a vehicle that says, or any card that says when it enters Scry, it's like, oh, this card was bad, and they needed to make it better.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, usually. But
Sure.
I think this card is going to be compared to Warden of the something or other.
Yeah, the Ixalan one.
Yeah,
drop.
there's an Ixalan 1-drop that has a very similar ability to this, which actually scries when you tap 3 other untapped creatures or artifacts in that card's case. Yes, Warden of the Inner Sky. Thank you, James. But the Voyager Glide Car is kind of scary in the sense that Crew 1 makes it very easy to just get this going if you need it to swing for 2 or whatnot. But you really want it to get flying.
Yeah.
The nice thing is that you only really need to use this tap 3 untapped cards once to get this to be a 3/4, which just dodges bolt and is incredibly annoying to deal with. Doesn't have flying by itself, which is a bit of a pisser. But I like this card more than I did on initial glance, I guess
have
is
such
what
a
I'm
hard
saying.
time evaluating this one, right?
I like it more,
yeah.
but I think it's very targeted. I think that I'm only playing this if I am on a very low curve white aggressive deck, or like a white X, like 2-color tokens deck that has a heavier emphasis on white itself. Or if I am a deck that cares about artifacts.
Yeah, I was going to say blue-white Stefan Bard, maybe, like that artifact
Blue-white
aggro.
Stefan Bard. Stefan Bard's never attacked with a card in his life.
Sorry, what am I thinking of? There's the year-end final 2023 white
Oh, was
blue.
it
Oh,
JVB?
JVB.
Brunson.
Pardon me,
Yes.
the
Yeah.
JVB artifact aggro, because
Yeah.
like it is an artifact, right?
Yes. Yeah. A blue-white artifact mid-range style that could maybe get away with this because it's 1 mana.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 1 mana. That's totally fair. I just think tap 3 other untapped creatures is so because okay, it doesn't need to be crewed when you do that, at least, right? So you
Yeah.
could be crewing it with 1, but then you get 2 more friends, and now you're like, okay, 3 other total creatures, and it has flying this 1 turn. It gets bigger.
Well, it's
Yeah.
I think of it
It's
as
a big ask.
it's 2 alternate crew costs. You can either crew for 1 or crew with 3 creatures, because the
Right.
tap 3 creatures also cruise it, air
Right,
quote,
it turns
right?
it into a creature. Yeah.
So you don't need 4 creatures for that ability.
Right. It's just because, like you said earlier, the play pattern you're often going to want is to give it flying at least once so that now it can start attacking on the ground with a bigger body. And like 3/4 up from 2/3 is really relevant. And it's tough that like the pattern asks you to have more resources early, right? Like
Yeah.
it is a 1 mana spell, so that's great. I'm not sure about this one. I feel like it could go either way. It's interesting design space for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Nelly.
Wizened Mentor, 1 and a white for a 2/2 zombie cleric. with whenever an opponent activates an ability of a permanent that isn't a mana ability, you create a 1/1 white zombie creature token. This ability triggers only once each turn. So it's Amonkhet coded, and it is a mentor for
Giant Egyptian art.
yeah, white zombies, and well, it's a mentor too, so it's kind of like a parallel to Harsh Mentor.
Sure.
A bunch of the same
Right.
cards would trigger both. Very different card though. Obviously, they are both Punisher mechanic 2/2s for 2 that say mentor in the title, but then the differences start to really diverge. So this one, making white bodies, pretty similar to that. I want to say Modern Horizons 3 Commander product card that was
Charismatic Conqueror.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That was Ixalan coded, right?
Yeah, that's the one
2/2
that they
for
have to
2.
enter and tap or whatever.
Yeah, and that one had a Punisher mechanic where like they have to pay more or something, or you get bodies. So a decent card. You know, we like a white card that punishes your opponent for doing stuff. I don't know whether this makes the full-on Death and Taxes cut, but maybe in Zombies Kindred, which is a real deck.
Zombies is more real than it
Yeah.
looks. I don't think you could
I-
pay me to play this anywhere other
Matthew
than
Greer's
Zombies, though.
zombie deck, though, pretty scary, right? Like, and maybe he would consider this one.
Yeah. If I have other cards that care about zombies, this being a 2-drop zombie that's easy to cast that
Yeah.
makes more zombies
Yeah.
is appealing.
2-drop zombie with relevant words on it.
Yeah.
Like, there are not enough of those yet, really, that you
No,
can definitely cast this guy aside.
I was going to say, I feel that zombies in particular are still missing a density of high-value 2-drop threats.
And this one's not legendary, unlike
Yeah.
Zul Asher, which we
So,
also gave the nod to recently.
Love that. And that deck has so many lords that making more bodies of anything
Yeah.
is kind of good. So I like it
Maybe-
exactly there.
Maybe see this in a token strategy, too?
All right, let's move on to blue and move back to me with Diversion Unit. This is a 2-mana, 2/1 artifact creature robot for 1 and a blue. It has flying and blue, and sack this creature, counter target instant or sorcery spell unless its controller pays 3. I love this. I think it is a great, cheap, evasive threat that does a great job of mimicking the play pattern that was pretty much limited to like merfolk and spirits before, of like you play a threat that can also either protect your board or like sets you up, unless you're playing exactly Supreme Verdict, like protects your aggressive threat from your aggressive board rather from wraths and stuff like that. It's also an artifact, which just makes it broken. It just gives it like 3 other points. We ignore the fact that artifact makes it more vulnerable to a wider suite of removal and instead makes it synergize higher with way more busted strategies, aka Tolarian Academy.
Well, hold on. Don't speak for all of us, because this that is a thing that does pop up with certain archetypes, mainly flying men, which is a card that I've been asked about.
Do you not like this?
Archetype that I've been asked about for this card, which I do not like this card for flying.
No. I like this in that Davy B blue-white artifact beatdown style of deck, and pretty much just that.
Yeah.
Did Malevolent Hermit see much play in our format? I haven't really run into it too often, but possibly it's been.
I saw it a little bit in the early.
Sorry, which one is that really quick?
So Malevolent Hermit's from Midnight Hunt, I think. 1 and a blue for a 2/1 with the same pretty much activated ability, but not flying, but it has Disturb. And then once it dies, you can pay 4.
Oh, right.
Oh, wait, this one says non-creature
Yeah,
spell,
non-creature.
so it was even better of an activated ability. But it doesn't have flying. But it has Disturb for 3 mana. You get a 2/2 flyer, which then I think makes some of your spells uncounterable. Your non-creature spells are uncounterable.
Yeah.
So a kind of similar card, but the front half having flying.
The flying does a lot of heavy lifting, which makes me
Sure.
much higher on that card.
Sure. Yeah.
All good.
Yeah.
Wheeler.
Maybe a good card for robots. Yeah.
Memory Guardian. 4 and a blue for a 3/4 artifact creature, robot artificer, with affinity for artifacts and flying. I like this card. It's a somber hover guard, but for 2025, and that's good enough for me. It's got 4 toughness.
Yeah, we played
It's-
Somber Hoverguard before Darksteel came out in Standard.
Yeah, that card was real.
Like Somber Hoverguard killed people. Yeah.
yeah.
3/4 flyer for 1?
And it was one. It was 1 more mana, and it isn't an artifact itself.
Yeah. I mean, you pay 1 mana, you pay 2 mana, you could even pay 3 mana, who cares? Like
Yeah.
in a deck, like if you have to tap your Ancient Tomb or your Workshop to get this out, it's like, okay, that's fine. The important thing is there's a single colored pip.
Yep.
It dodges Lightning Bolt, and it is an artifact, meaning that in the deck with a bunch of artifacts where you want everything to be artifacts, you just now have another artifact to do that. Like that blue-white artifact mid-range or like blue-white X artifact mid-range got so many new cards in this set that like make it a genuine like, you know, the recent points changes like, yes, decks are cutting their third Moxen. And then this deck's like, yes, triple Moxen Academy. Let's go.
Right. I can still play my third Moxen.
I mean, losing to Urza Saga in that deck, though, does legitimately hurt because card structs are never been better than that. But no, agreed. Like, holy moly.
Maybe you cut a Moxen and you go Mox, Academy, Saga, Ancient Tomb, Mana Vault, or whatever.
I mean, those decks were playing Psychic Frog before it was pointed as well. So, like, you maybe just sneak Psychic Frog back in there. But it's just so exciting when your cares about artifact cards, in this case, just the affinity ability, are also artifacts, because sometimes you have to pick. Like sometimes you're like, okay, I'm playing this sorcery, playing this instant, I'm playing this planeswalker. They all care about artifacts, but they themselves aren't artifacts. And so sometimes you'll just have openers where you're like, damn, I don't have enough like mana rocks and random things.
I don't have any actual artifacts to make my siege deck work. So a great example in that, like those low to the ground artifact aggro ones, are the 1-mana 1/1s that get like +2/+1 if
the
you
dwarf or whatever.
Right?
Court Homunculus.
And people are like, oh, this is great. Like, you should play all of these. And you're like, well, no, because for the exact reason you stated.
Right. Like, there's the Court Homunculus, but then there's also that first Kaladesh set, right, or whatever.
There's a Vendor's Apprentice or Toolcraft Exemplar.
Toolcraft Exemplar is the one I was thinking of.
So it's like you got to pick how many of those you allow.
Anyways.
Let's talk about Is it me? It's
yes,
me, right?
Yes.
Mind Spring Merfolk. 1 blue mana for a 1/1 Merfolk wizard with Exhaust, XX blue, and tap. Draw X card. Sorry, is that right?
You said XX.
Oh, I did XX blue. I'm sorry. I said exhaust, X blue, and tap. Draw X cards. Put a +1/+1 counter on each Merfolk you control, each Merfolk creature. So one more time, it's you pay X and blue, and tap it. So you can't do this immediately. So you got to have your untap with your 1/1, and then you can put 3 or more mana. I mean, you could technically do it for 0, but then just to get the counter, I guess, is fine. Tap it to just pump your team. That's fine. But if you want to get some cards out of it, 3 or more mana, and then you get cards equals that mana -2. This is a neat one. I kind of like it if you're playing like the version of blue-green Merfolk that's like as aggressive as possible, because it's a 1-drop. And so if you're trying to max out your, green Merfolks that are cheap and big, then this fits in there. I don't know if I like it. Obviously, like, it's a Merfolk, and it starts out as a 1/1 for 1. So, like, don't play it in decks that you aren't calling Merfolk.
Yeah.
Like, Merfolk needs to be in the deck name. I don't think for its ability, it's more exciting than, like, Alquist Prof or whatever, like, at doing, look, I drew a lot of cards off of my activated ability, Like, this is more about, like, what value you get on your Merfolk that also does something else, but is in there to attack.
I think I just played this in any Merfolk deck.
I was really curious about that.
Merfolk deck?
Yeah.
Well, my question was, is it good enough, or is Merfolk 1-drop shallow enough that you're like so happy to upgrade, right?
I mean it's both. It's one, you get to cut your Mist Caller, or you get to cut your like
Tidal Shaper or whatever.
No, that bad boy stay.
It's not as good as Tide Shaper.
But like, you get to cut your not a Merfolk card that you're including in your Merfolk deck, or maybe like a 4-drop or whatever, to play something that can hit the board early, that can like just give you a body when your next 2 turns are Lord. And then one of the things that Merfolk does struggle with is that you run out of cards. And this can just be a mana sink. You're a Moxen deck. You could be a Gaia's Cradle deck, frankly. And just having this like, I think I'm going to just draw 3 cards or whatever and buff my team, including itself, for a deck that also just can hold up mana. Like, that seems pretty reasonable to me. Yeah.
Okay. I was initially skeptical at the like gotta untap with it, but all right.
I won the Aetherdrift roulette, and I get to talk about the card I think we were all most excited about in this set, which is Repurposing Bay.
This was the only one I was like, we got to put this on the list.
Of course. 2 and a blue for an artifact. 2 and tap and sacrifice another artifact, : so that's all part of the cost. Search your library for an artifact card with mana value equal to 1 plus the sacrificed artifact's mana value. Put that card onto the battlefield and then shuffle. Activate as a sorcery. If that sounds familiar, that is because that is the same templating as Birthing Pod, But for artifacts, this is busted. This is wild. This is so cracked.
Don't forget to pull your jaw up back off of the floor before you leave the
Is
room,
it?
right? I mean,
What?
I'm excited to try it.
Is it?
Yeah, is it?
You don't get to. You're not sad to.
I recommend Esper.
No,
Get get your one ring up to 3 or 4, and then turn it into your Paradox engine.
Yeah, but if my one ring's up to 3 or 4, I'm already finding my Paradox engine.
I'm shocked.
Sell me on why you think this is really good.
Why don't you just sacrifice your Mishra's Bauble to this to go find your expedition map, and then you can get your Twittering Academy.
After I've paid 3 mana and then an additional 2 mana to set up the map to pay an additional 2 mana.
All right, so I have a legitimate question for you, Wheeler. Okay, no,
You're playing X.
hold on.
You've got the
So,
mana.
in a lot of times in Magic Card Discourse, one of two things happens. People get hype on a card, and they're way more excited than it actually deserves to be because, things get to be a little insular. Or people are you just hating on this card because people are over-evaluating it and you're trying to manage expectations? Are you legitimately low on this card? Like, you think this is just bad?
Well, I'm not low on this card, but I do think, like, anytime people are like, this is busted, it's like, well, why is it busted? I think that the onus should be on the people that are freaking out about this kind of card to explain why it is. And I haven't heard any real convincing arguments for this other than it can find KCI and it can find Time Vault. And those are two pretty convincing arguments, but they are also very expensive arguments to set up. The KCI is whatever. The Time Vault could be a bit of an issue depending on your particular Time Vault build. I'm lower on this card because, one, it can find Black Lotus, which is kind of what I want to be doing in a lot of artifact decks. If I'm not doing that, then I better be doing something with Time Vault or something with Paradox Engine or whatever. And then finding the important artifacts off this card, you don't get the cast trigger on the one ring, but you do get a one ring, so that's pretty good. You find your Paradox Engine, that's great, but again, I have to have a 4 in play that I'm converting, which means, what 4 am I using?
My mind immediately goes to, Sad Robot or something, but whatever, yeah.
But then I'm playing Sad Robot in 2025, right?
Yeah. Maybe this card's going to convince you to play Frogmite in your time.
Oh, yeah, there we go. So,
I'm not low on this.
No, that's
card.
fair. So, in creature-based combos,
yeah,
the chains are most exciting when you have the ability to untap stuff. So, your Pestermites, right? Because that's what you kill them out of nowhere. I mean, artifacts are not without that either. If you're the Time Vault deck, you have all of the keys. So the ability to activate this multiple times per turn and then move through it. And I think artifact, I mean, I'm approaching this from the old, and you're gonna date myself on this, from the old trading post decks of really abusing ETBs. And it's what type of shell do you want to work this as? But I suppose if you're coming at this from what are the existing archetypes that are going to get better that care about artifacts? So you're looking at Lotus, you're looking at Time Vault, you're looking at Academy. Maybe this is the beginning of a new artifact deck. And that's exciting to me, right? Maybe it doesn't have to fit in one of those 3 shells and it doesn't make those better.
Betty, I'm like Doctor Strange. I've seen every universe with every artifact deck. And there's only one where this works.
And that is?
Well, it's going to be a Time Vault list. Or
Time Vault, I've come to bargain.
You could have some kind of old school A+B artifact combo list that isn't reliant on Paradox, that can play, Rings of Bright Hearth combo,
I was thinking Rings of Bright Hearth.
Painter, Servant, Grindstone combo. But I don't know, man. I've seen this time and time again. There's a different artifact tutor in the set that I am infinitely more excited about.
Interesting.
We might not have a 3-4-5 that goes infinite with Kiki Jiki, equivalent for repurposing Bay in artifacts, or maybe someone's going to figure it out and then they'll show us. I haven't figured it out yet. I just drooled as soon as I finished reading the card. But Word of Invention for Paradox Engine costs 8 mana, and oftentimes you're paying 8 real mana for it. A lot of these decks, the ones that the improvised cards, the things they're tapping are just mana rocks anyway. So this can maybe get you that.
But that's one card for
5
one
mana.
card, is what I'm saying.
Right, yeah. It's I'm just trying to talk about the floor of this card here as opposed to the ceiling. It's Well, it's just so everyone's clear. Like, this is kind of exciting. It's an artifact tutor.
Yeah.
And there's artifact combo decks. So we're going to be playing with this card a bit and trying it out.
The cards I get excited about for artifact decks are the ones that let me win the game even after I've been abraded twice. Because any artifact card that you get that has a gold or like orange rarity symbol will probably combo kill and win the game if you are left to your own devices. That's fine. That's never been an issue with these. The ones I want to get excited about are like added flexibility and like decreased cost and or keeping me alive. And I'm just not convinced by this card. I'm not just trying to be contrarian.
Sure.
I'm just a person that's been playing I've been playing Tolarian Academy when some of our listeners were in diapers.
Yeah,
like
sure.
you know, in this format.
All three of us have sleeved it up a lot in a lot of different ways, which I enjoy too. Because aggro, big blue, and then combo. I would argue, like, I legitimately think we've piloted and gone deep in those archetypes, right? Like, we've played a lot of artifact decks.
Yeah.
I also like that 2 of the 3 of us are pretty hype on it.
Like, you can go artifact land into key into vault. I like that. That could be a thing. Then we have a time vault that's tapped and the key, and then I got to figure out how to untap that vault there, or I'm exposing my combo to disruption, which can be a little awkward. Like, I got to pass the turn in that case. Yeah. I mean, I'll play with this card. Don't get me wrong.
I love the plan of just sacrificing your key to get the vault, and then the next turn you're sacrificing your vault to this thing to get, I'm not sure what the 3 is, whatever, but then you're sacrificing the 3 to go get trading posts. Now you're getting your artifacts out of your bin. I love that you set this up. The new best time vault deck just revolves around
Treasure
trading
Keeper,
posts.
whatever, the one that, you sacrifice an artifact and you bring something back into it.
Scrap
Troll. That's Scrappy T, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in a perfect world, we're getting Basalt Monolith that's like fueling some kind of, second key, untap this thing, sacrifice it right away.
All right.
What? Stay tuned. Watch,
Let's move on.
Be careful of repurposing Bay in the future.
Scrounging Sky Ray, 1 and a blue for a 1/2 fish pirate with flying, and whenever you discard 1 or more cards, put that many +1/+1 counters on this creature, and it has cycling for 2 generic. I like this card a little less than its counterpart that we'll get to in red.
Yeah.
But I do like this card because this is an archetype I've been trying to pick at for a while, is Grixis or Rakdos. I don't want to call it madness because that I'm going to get people's hopes up that like we're playing anything other than maybe Fiery Temper.
Yeah, and it's not cycling either. This is like Evora.
Yes,
like
you're
Burning Inquiry or
Evora.
whatever?
No,
Okay.
you're like Evora, you're Inti, you're Fable the Mirror Breaker.
Oh,
like
I
there's
see.
just so many very powerful mid-range threats that care about discarding cards and drawing cards off that and cycling that. Your Blood Tithe Harvesters. Basically, look at any like modern to pioneer Rakdos deck within the past.
Even the top 8 red-black deck.
Yeah.
Blood tokens.
Yeah.
The deck.
And by adding blue, your deck gets better because you've added blue. But
A ton of discard cards too, though, in blue. It's
yeah, you
like
get
good
access
cards that just say discard a card.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And the fact that you like the templating on this is just 1 or more, you get that many.
Yeah.
Like you pitch to your Psychic Frog and this gets bigger, right? For every single card. It's just that deck, the things that give strategies like that life are often cheaper cards and redundancy. And so this strategy now from this set has received 2 new cards that are cheaper. There's some that are like 3 and 4, but whatever. It's got cheaper cards and they do the same, more or less the same thing. Not to mention the cycling, like if you already have one of these out, like you just cash in the other and this one gets bigger. Like it's a cool untapped thing, and I'd be interesting to see more. And this is the exact kind of thing that you want if you're going to branch into blue.
Turn 2 Ledger Shredder, turn 3 this guy, and then opt. I'm ready to scoop him up.
Yeah. Just like, nice.
Oh.
Like, well done. You did it.
All right, Nelly, take us home in blue.
Transit Mage. We've done it. We completed the cycle.
Yep.
It's 2 and a blue for a 2/2 human wizard. With when this enters, you may search your library for an artifact card with mana value 4 or 5, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. And there's even a picture of a band nerd playing an electric guitar. I don't know. Is it Duskmorn coded? I'm not sure what's going on with this art. But yeah, hey, it's the Furiosa set, so why not? This person's at the front of the war mob playing the electric, rock and roll riffs. But yeah, this is exciting. Now you can play, Escape the Zombies, the tutors for any mana value or artifact in your deck. Right? Like,
Because it's 6 or greater for the last one, right?
Yeah.
Treasure Mage is like a two ago, right? Like they gave us the most recent one before this was one that lets you go for a 2.
Yeah.
I think, right?
Tribute
Mage, yeah. Go
like
find
Trinket
your
Mage
time
is
vault.
the OG,
That's right. Trinket Mage for a 1 or 0, and then they gave us Treasure Mage second,
which is 6
for
or
a 6.
greater.
Yeah.
Or is it just 6 or 6 or
6
greater?
or greater.
6 or greater. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the bookends were first.
Yeah.
And
we
then
got the 3.
The 3.
Trophy,
Then we got the 2.
tribute,
And now we got the 4 or 5.
transit.
I like that they all have T as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, they kept in keeping. So this cycle took like more than 20 years.
Well, yeah, Treasure
flesh
Mage
out?
was Scars, right?
Yeah.
Not to interrupt this, but all this
worries.
is irrelevant to talk about how busted this card
Oh,
is.
Yeah,
yeah.
this card goes and gets the One Ring or Paradox
Yeah.
Engine.
Yeah,
right?
One Ring, Paradox Engine, Kark Clan Ironworks, Aetherflux Reservoir, Memory Jar,
Trading Post,
Trading Post.
Juggernaut.
Frogmite.
there
yeah.
are probably other ones that were. I mean, it seems silly to say Batterskull, but honestly, in that blue-white like
Yeah.
artifact mid-range, that Batterskull kind of hits.
If you needed to, like for depending on what you're doing, you could get that 5 mana Wormcoil engine, like in case you need to be like sacrificing things, multiple bodies or whatever. I don't know. No, that was pretty deep of me. But like, you know what? You could have 4 mana up. Go get this and go get that new better Somber Hoverguard we just talked about.
No, just get the One Ring. Just get KCI, the One Ring, or Paradox Engine.
Yeah,
This card's so good.
that's going to be most of what you're doing.
This is the artifact tutor that I'm like,
Yeah.
damn. All right. Yeah.
Chump, untap, play One Ring. I'm in.
Pretty
All
good.
right. All right, let's move on to black. I'll start off with the Demonic Junker. This is a 7 mana 4/3 vehicle artifact for 6 and a black, but it also has affinity for artifacts. When this vehicle enters, for each player, destroy up to 1 target creature that player controls. If a creature you control is destroyed this way, put up 2 +1/+1 counters on the vehicle and it accrues for 2. Phenomenal.
Great.
You love to see it.
I can't believe they gave us another Grixis Teletubbies that's so good. Like kills one of their creatures too. It's so wild.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
play this in your red black or your 3-color artifact matters artifact deck.
I'm gonna Goblin Welder this so much.
Yeah. Yeah. This does a great job of being redundant with what's that 40k red black card?
Chaos Defiler.
Chaos Defiler, same sort of thing. Like you could play this once and be very happy, or you can play it multiple times. And I enjoy the flexibility, maybe being able to make it bigger.
Yeah, don't always expect to pay 1, but that's okay because like paying 3 for this is just fine. Like just getting it into a zone that you can then manipulate and synergize with is huge. And also you could just destroy your own thing if you want to. Like you don't. That's very weird. They don't usually do that, but like there are going to be scenarios where it's like, yeah, actually to hell with this thing in particular. Like I want to put it in the graveyard to then reanimate again to rebuy an ETB or whatever. Like that's not nothing. Very cool.
Yeah.
Wheeler.
You could. I just want to say, like, you could be paying 3 mana for this, and then still be like above mana parity. Like if you kill your opponent's 4-drop creature.
Oh, sure.
Yep.
Like even if you don't have a lot of artifacts in play, it's still gonna be so good.
Gas Guzzler.
Everybody do the face.
Wait. We given the
1 black for a 2/1 Vampire Rogue with Start Your Engines. This creature enters tapped. Max speed. Pay a black. Sacrifice another creature or vehicle. Draw a card. I don't know why, but when I first saw that, not when I first saw this, but when I saw that I was going to talk about this card, I'm like, yeah, it's great. It's crack. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, it's a 1 mana 2-power creature with a relevant creature type, somewhat relevant creature type. And that max speed is like messed up.
Yeah.
Aggressive black decks or black X decks that want to play 2-power 1-drops. This is a great one to have. Vampires, great one to have. Even aristocrats, because it's so easy for aristocrats to just ping your opponent over and over again. And then getting up to max speed means that, I mean, for one, this gives you like a 1-drop sack outlet that can like start converting into cards as like a tutor target for like Ranger of Eos or Ranger Captain of Eos. It's great. It's Gas Guzzler.
I just want to say two relevant creature types, because if you have your CZPZ, this matters, right? Like that guy can't.
Oh, the Seasoned Dungeoneer.
Seasoned Dungeoneer, yeah. Sorry, not CZPZ, CZDZ. Sorry.
Is
Yeah.
I think Blue Black Rogues has been seeing a little bit of like
Oh my
practice
gosh.
as well.
I wouldn't be surprised.
No, Wheeler's making the face.
That card
Yeah, I
was
thought
scary.
you were the one
That
telling
was
me
scary
about
in standard.
rogues.
No, I was telling you about ninjas and
Oh.
fairies.
Oh,
Yeah.
maybe I just heard ninjas and fairies and asked if it plays like standard.
No,
Rogues
I
played.
said fairies was pretty good, and then Angel said actually rogues is also pretty good, and then I gave her the stink face.
Yeah, but she's better at magic than we are.
Okay, well,
Yeah, I
Look,
will.
we're all washed, man. Right?
This card's fantastic and goes with all the cards that you're used to me really enjoying that cost 1 black mana.
Sure.
I will say it sort of looks like a card that recurs itself. It doesn't do
It's
that.
not
Yeah,
a zombie. It looks
doesn't
like
do
it's
that.
supposed to be a zombie,
Yeah,
and that
yeah.
black ability is supposed to let you cast it from its graveyard.
But,
right?
but it loves being on the
Yeah, yeah,
yourself
yeah.
team, right? Like it's a member. Yeah.
That's funny. All right, you're up.
Let's talk about Quag Feast. It's 1 and a black for a sorcery that says choose target creature, planeswalker, or vehicle. Mill 2 cards. Then destroy the chosen permanent if its mana value is less than or equal to the number of cards in your graveyard. So, pretty interesting sort of dread bore. Like, it does say creature or planeswalker. We usually tend to like those cards, especially if they only cost 2 mana. The downside, in the quotes here, is that it won't always kill anything.
Yeah.
But the big upside is that it mills you. Which is fantastic. Normally, you go to your way to just play cards that mill you, and this one also kills one of your opponent's creatures. The further good news is that, like, most of the shit that matters in our format only costs 0, 1, or 2 mana. So, like, it's going to kill most of the problems. Like, sure, it doesn't necessarily kill Lelia, or Seasoned Dungeoneer.
it's like Murktide Regent's the only thing I'm really worried about.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it won't necessarily kill your opponent's that black card that we just looked at, the Demonic Junker, right?
Yeah.
Unless you've already got some stuff in your bin. But the decks that are the most excited to get this are just like, overjoyed to have a kill spell that mills themselves.
I was lower on this, but I guess it could be because I was undervaluing the self mill, because we've had Drown in the Lock, and there was the 1 black instant before that also, like, target creature gets -X for the number of cards in your graveyard. Did I make that up? Did I invent the card?
Are you like talking about Ghastly Demise?
Oh yeah, Ghastly Demise is
Like-
a real card.
Yeah, it kills
Sure,
a
so-
thing, but
You lose life, right?
No, it
Oh.
depends on how many cards. you have in your
Right,
sorry.
but both of those kind of fell out of favor because of the unreliability, specifically in the early game. Of it feels bad to have a conditional removal spell in your hand when you really want to fight in the early game. And I thought you'd both be lower on this.
This kills Psychic Frog. That's all I care about.
Kills
That's
Psychic
all
Frog,
I care
interesting.
about
Interesting.
nowadays.
No, I mean, it kills
Right.
Ocelot
I
Pride
guess
too.
it
Yeah, it kills the
always
monkey.
kills a 2-drop,
Kills
right?
Tameo.
Yeah.
I mean, Ren and 6. Okay, all right, no.
Kills Emperor of Bones.
All right, okay. I'm
I
higher
don't know.
on this
Like
now.
the number. The thing is, the number of things it always kills is just such a huge swath of
Yeah,
the
and one
format.
fetch land, and you're laughing.
Yeah.
Okay.
You mentioned like 5 MH3 cards, and I got a little sick to my
So,
stomach.
Yeah,
I mean,
sorry.
honestly, when I was playing last night, I was playing against a newer player, and I was like, "Oh, it's got the Modern Horizon symbol. You should read this." Just every single time, just like pass it across.
Yeah.
All right. The last black card we're going to talk about today is The Last Ride. This is a 1 mana 13/13 legendary artifact vehicle. It gets -X, where X is your life total. That might sound familiar. 2 and a black, pay 2 life, draw a card, and crew 2. So it has the ability to be played out early because it's a 1-drop and sort of fuel your stuff if you're low on it, or if you have a Death Shadow style strategy and you're trying to get your life total down, you can hit pretty hard with it. I have a hard time evaluating this because Death Shadow isn't a thing in our format because we don't have redundancy for it, but maybe now we're getting redundancy for it, and that could be kind of cool.
This is Death Shadow number 3.
Right. There is.
There's the 2-drop, right? Yeah, this is the third one.
Yeah. So, but Yeah, it's number 3, so maybe that's good enough that we
Is
start
there
playing around with it.
Is there a weird shenanigan now where we could just take advantage of the fact that it has 13 power and toughness and ignore the rest of the text and like borrow it?
Can't Verril's a vehicle.
Right? Like pseudo mimeoplasm, something with this. I don't know.
Possibly, but I'm not sure. Yeah, the fact that it's not a creature card is
In the graveyard,
matters.
Yeah.
But you said the most interesting thing I think about this card, which is just that it's a Death Shadow that doesn't ever die to itself.
It,
Yeah.
it just sits.
Yeah, you can just chill. Like it's 1 mana, so you're like, okay, I am gonna have a Death Shadow unless you like mill me out or combo kill me, right? Like, but if we're playing a creature game, eventually I'm gonna crew this thing, right?
Yeah, it is kind of wild that you can just play it and it does nothing until your opponent like tries to race you, hits you down low enough, and you're like, okay,
Tries
creature,
to-
crew.
Race you?
Also, it's legendary, but like the fact that it's a vehicle means it sort of dodges Caracas. Like you can maybe wait until you find
Yeah.
out it's the Caracas to crew it. It's an interesting card. I'm curious to try 3 Death Shadows deck now that that's an option.
Shall we move on to red?
Yes.
James?
Burnout Bashtronaut, our first red card and the only one visible to our 3 hosts.
Yes, please
James.
update.
1 red for a 1/1 Goblin Warrior with Menace and Start Your Engines.
Beep, beep.
It also has pay 2 generic. This creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn. And max speed. This creature has double strike. I'm not too enthused to play this card in mono red like RDW. It's just, have you seen the card quality in that deck? But Menace, double strike, and a the worst fire breathing of all time. This is
so
this is the kind of thing you put on like Dragon Engine.
Yeah, it is the fire breathing from Dragon.
It is
Engine,
Dragon
isn't it?
Engine.
Yeah.
It's just like, you know, Goblins could maybe get behind that. Like a more aggressive version of Goblins. I could see testing this out because, well, it's a 1-drop Goblin that scales pretty well and just happens to be in a deck that is pretty good at chipping away at the opponent and hitting max speed.
What do you think about the like double strike deck? Does it want to include this?
No,
No.
you need to. I'm not. If my double strike deck has to hit them 4 times.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's not a chip damage deck. That's
Three times, right? Because your speed starts at 1, but still. No, I wanted to bring that point up for our viewers who are going to have the same question.
All right. Nelly.
Chandra Spark Hunter, 3 and a red for a 4 loyalty legendary planeswalker Chandra with, at the beginning of combat on your turn, choose up to 1 target vehicle you control. Until end of turn, it becomes an artifact creature and gains haste. So cruise a vehicle once per turn for free in the begin combat step, gives it haste in case it's new. +2, you may sacrifice an artifact or discard a card. If you do, draw a card. 0, create a 3/2 colorless vehicle artifact token with crew 1. Synergizes great with that triggered ability. -7, you get an emblem with whenever an artifact you control enters, this emblem deals 3 damage to any target. Okay, so interesting new 4-mana Chandra that, like, it's trying to do kind of a fair Minskin Boo impression, right? Like, this is a planeswalker that is also a creature with haste. Barely, right? The creature isn't Boo. It doesn't have trample. But look, if you told me a card was a bad Minskin
4-mana
Boo,
planeswalker
that is a
that
pretty
makes
big
it-
sales pitch, right?
A 4-mana planeswalker that comes with a free creature that can attack that turn, but it doesn't attack as a 4/4 with trample.
Exactly. It doesn't even have menace or anything. It's just a 3/2 vanilla. Like, it still has haste.
Did you and Serge like coordinate? Like, okay, we're gonna give points for all these cards. It'll really get Wheeler to just tilt out and like just.
Wait. Is he found
Am
out
I
about our
losing my
4:30
mind?
Monday meeting
Am
where
I
we just like we swap notes every week?
So
We've,
this
like,
card- no, no,
we're
I
trying to
think-
figure
I
out
think
what's
this-
going to make him crumble.
I think this is a commander card.
I'm not very excited about this card.
I think
but
it's horrible, but I honestly want to try it in big red.
sure.
Yeah.
You play only dog shit cards in that deck.
Yeah. Okay.
It's like Soul Ring and 99 Stinkers.
Do try to avoid swearing.
I'm sorry.
Three colorless mana means that it's pretty easy to cast off your Ancient Tombs and whatnot, and your soul mana. Getting to cash in useless cards, like acting as like an outpost siege or whatever.
Or like a bad Duretti is kind of interesting, right?
Sacrifice an artifact or discard a card is a nice.
I mean,
nice line.
sacking artifact in particular, because there's some artifacts that give you value when they die. That's what I mean by bad Duretti, not the bring it back part, but the sack
Right.
part.
Yeah. And then, for what it's worth, making these vehicles that dodge Wildfire.
Yeah.
So there are threats that dodge your sweepers, assuming
like
you decline this triggered ability.
Yeah, the Boo token isn't legendary.
Please stop talking about Minsk and Boo. This card does threaten to ultimate pretty quickly, too.
Yeah.
So, like,
Yeah.
if it sees play, it's exactly that, but it is crap. Yeah.
No, I don't think this is going to see play in our format. No.
Yeah.
You did give it a very charitable read, but I think it's bad.
Hey, I'm still sticking with this like 20 years later that Quest for Ula's Temple is like a bad ether vial, right? Like it's bad, but it's like an ether vial.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, next up, Count on Luck. This is an enchantment for red. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. This is not a unique effect, except normally they cost 4 mana, typically 3 in a red, and I think we've got like one that has the word Phyrexia in it.
We have so many.
We have so many at 4. I don't know if there's any at 3.
I don't think so.
Wild Wasteland.
Oh, right. Okay, right. But that one has a pretty sincere drawback, right?
Yes.
What's Wild Wasteland?
It's recent. It's just the most recent set.
Yeah,
right?
you skip your draw step, but you get 2 cards.
Right, and then I guess another one at 3 would be there's a landfall one. The
Valakut Expedition.
Yeah, but you need to play a landfall to make it work. Anyways, regardless, this is the first time that we have gotten one at 3 that is non-conditional. So this is the equivalent of like red Phyrexian Arena. At red, you're probably only playing this in a mono red deck, but there are a lot of very card hungry red decks. Actually, there's one card hungry red deck that wants that, which is like medium red or schmedium red. Check it out.
But that deck can't play this, and
because of
big
Ancient
red?
2 mana?
Yeah, I think so.
I like this in Spellslinger Red.
Okay.
So the kind of like low to ground mono red shell that is not medium red, but is also not like play every aggressive 2 power 1 drop sort of style. This is the like Kessig Flame Breather red.
Right. Not quite the prowess deck, but the gutter snipe deck.
Yeah. And because it gives you that card flow on turn 3, that's the exact kind of turn that you want to just get this down. And you're not an Ancient Tomb deck, so you can take advantage of that.
It's templated kind of like a Foundations card, right? Like it feels core set with only, two sentences and the like fairly elegant 3 red pips. It feels to me like it was a core set card. There's no second half of that point. This is an interesting kind of iconic card. Like it's very simple. It's very elegant. I feel like there has to be a reason that it costs 3 red pips, like all 3 of them.
I think it'd just be too easy to splash in other decks if it's too fair.
Even the third one though, like Phyrexian Arena is black, and a colorless. Yeah. Also around right now, like in the standard format, right?
Yeah, but that loses you life.
Yeah. Well, this one you can't keep
all
the card
upside.
for later.
That's red, dude.
That's just red.
I don't know. Good for your devotion cards if there are any of those.
All right, Wheeler.
Duretti Rocketeer Engineer, 4 in a red for a star 5 legendary Goblin Artificer. Duretti's power is equal to the greatest mana value among artifacts you control. Whenever Duretti enters or attacks, choose target artifact card in your graveyard. You may sack an artifact. If you do, return the chosen card to the battlefield. I'll give this card a shot in big red and in like a blue-red Tinker style strategy, like a blue-red artifacts kind of mid-range ramp, that kind of thing. I think this card's not bad. You don't exactly want to Caracas it. It survives wildfires, which is very funny. It can hit like a truck.
Yep.
And just on ETB, getting to trash for treasure is pretty nice. And look at that mana cost. That's a lot of colorless mana. That's easy to cast off your Soul Rings, your Mana Crypts, whatever.
Your Academy.
Yeah.
Super curious if this is going to pan out and be like a recurring staple like years from now, because it just seems to be a little clunky for me.
It's very, again, it's you got to build around that kind of theme.
Yeah.
But like it has the right numbers in the right places, and it's a card that if you get a one shot with it, you're probably happy. But if you get to do it over and over again, you like legitimately may run out of like reasonable things to do. You're
5
like
toughness. Yeah,
if I'm like chaos defilering people or even just like pyrite spell bombing them and like exchanging like treasure tokens or clue tokens or whatever, I think I'm pretty happy.
He's a master of value.
Nelly.
Draconautics Engineer, 1 and a red for a 2/2 goblin with exhaust, 1 red. Other creatures you control gain haste until end of turn. Put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. And exhaust, 3 and a red. Create a 4/4 red dinosaur dragon creature token with flying. So to be clear here, this card is a 2/2 for 2 with 2 exhaust abilities. You may activate each of them only once ever. And yeah, exhaust is just templated so that you have to kind of remember. This one, making the token at least once, while the token's alive, you'll have an easy time remembering. And then the +1/+1 counter this thing puts on it for its first exhaust ability, hopefully that sticks around and you remember that you've given other creatures haste once and you can't do that again. This card's pretty smooth. I don't know if Goblins really cares about it. Possibly red deck wins. I'm trying to think of which deck kind of takes the most advantage of the granting haste.
Medium red.
I like medium red.
You like
it's
medium
got
red?
so many big threats at 3 and 4
Yeah.
that giving them haste, like playing this at 2, and then like any of the 17 Goblin Rabble Masters that exist now, right? Like,
Maybe red green monsters. The second exhaust ability feels a lot like an old monstrous ability.
sure, for sure.
Similar sort of space there. So yeah, look for this in your medium red and your red green monsters decks. I'm a fan of all those 3 drops that they've been giving us that give other creatures haste. And so this one, you can only do it once, but at least it attacks for 3. Comes down on 2.
Next up, we have the Grease Wrench Goblin. This is a 1-mana 2/1 Goblin Artificer with an exhaust ability, 2 and a red, discard up to 2 cards, then draw that many cards, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Does Goblin have any... other than like Jackal Pup?
No, I think we did it. I think we found the goblin from this set that actually goes in goblins.
Right,
There's a bunch of relevant goblins, but this one goes in goblins, doesn't it? What do you think?
Yeah, it's a 1 mana 2 power a red creature with upside relevant creature type.
Not even upside, with no downside.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah. If your hand is empty, you can just draw 2 cards. Yeah.
No.
But
It does
also
say draw that many. It doesn't.
Oh, my bad. Sorry.
Yeah.
But still, you get a +1/+1 counter. No downside.
Pretty straightforward on
Great.
this one.
Yeah.
Wheeler.
Hazoret Godseeker, 1 and a red for a 5/3 legendary creature god with indestructible and haste. Start your engines. Pay 1 generic, tap. Target creature with power 2 or less can't be blocked this turn. Hazoret can't attack or block until you have max speed.
I have no idea how to evaluate this one.
I've been trying to. I thought it was crap, and now I think it's less crap, maybe even good. It's tough to justify including this though when it's so easy to just play cards that you know are good.
Yeah.
Like,
No, I get it. This one needs to take a few turns for science because you were mentioning like the red version that pings your opponent a bunch and like that might enjoy it. I'm trying to think who else cares about the unblockability.
Like, do you want a 2-mana enchantment that just gives low power creature? Like, that's what this is, right?
We tend in this format to want to really judge our cards by the floor, right? Like Wheeler was just saying, like, why not play cards you know are good, right? Like cards that have like a minimum impact on your 1v1 game that's like up here. The minimum is really good. And this one's unclear.
Well, the issue is that it's fine on turn 2, but then you also only get it by turn 4 or turn 5 even, and that's not great. And it's not good on turn 7, whereas Lightning Bolt always deals 3, and the last card's always a 1-mana 2/1.
Now,
right?
we haven't gotten through our full set review, but maybe by the end of it, if we've talked about enough Start Your Engines cards, then there might be a home for it. No? Yeah, all right.
That was a question I had as well.
Yeah, okay.
Why are you warming up on this?
Oh, yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
I don't know, because pushing damage is good. Indestructible 5/3 is kind of annoying.
Is there
sure.
like, in a prowess deck or like no?
I'm just warming up on it because I thought this card was bad, and then I'm like, well, I can see a world where like this can be annoying for people trying to challenge the board, or if you get it early enough. Like if you high roll with this card, it's good, but every card is good when you high roll with it. So,
Right.
yep.
Okay. Remains to be seen. Probably not a player.
All right, Nelly.
Let's talk about Howl Squad Heavy. 2 and a red for a 2/3 Goblin Mercenary with start your engines, and other goblins you control have haste. Oh, good. We found another goblin that goes in goblins.
Yeah.
And at the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 1/1 red goblin creature token. That's right. That token attacks this combat if able. And max speed, tap, add a red for each goblin you control. Oh my god. It's a goblin that goes in goblins, and it's a goblin that's like the new best goblin in goblins.
This is the 4th Rabblemaster?
Something like that. There's the Mentor. There's the original Master. There's Squee.
There's Rabblemaster, Squee, Legion Warboss.
Right.
Are the 3 that I can name.
Maybe there's another one in there somewhere.
I'm looking at Wheeler and his encyclopedic knowledge of magic cards.
I don't really care how many other ringleaders there
Handweir
are.
Garrison.
This is a ringleader, Rabblemaster. I mean, this is a Rabblemaster that is also a Gaia's Cradle for goblins. Like that is wild. That max speed ability, like sure, it doesn't do that the first turn it comes down unless you played one of those other ones, which you're not going to. We talked about. So you don't get the mana right away. Like they probably kill this, or the game ends before you ever make that mana. But that mana ability is wild.
Also, giving all of your goblins haste is kind of cracked too.
Always good. Yeah, we love that on a Lord. It's not really a Lord in the pumping your other goblins sense, but it does, give that haste buff for everybody. So, if you play that 4-mana Crankoak, taps immediately, like several of the other goblins you're already playing that give other goblins haste. This one seems like a slam dunk in goblins.
Yeah. All right. Is this our last card?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
All right. Marauding Mako?
Mako.
Actually, you know what, Wheeler? I'm going to give this to you because you were really excited about this card.
1 red for a 1/1 Shark Pirate. Whenever you discard 1 or more cards, put that many 1/1 counters on this creature, and cycling for 2 generic. So this kind of goes with that Scrounging Sky Ray in that Grixis kind of discard-ish deck. But this one can obviously go in black-red, which is the strongest. I'd argue the core of that kind of strategy. It lines up very well when you play this into Avora or into Inti. I mean, this into Inti is busted.
Yeah.
Like it's so good.
It's Jover.
There are, like I said, the thing that these burgeoning archetypes need are cheaper cards and redundancy. And this is cheaper. It's a 1-drop, and it's redundant in that it's a card that is a creature that gets bigger and cares about discarding. Then it has cycling if you want to pitch it itself. Like if you draw it late and you're like, this isn't doing anything. It kind of lines up with the 1 mana. There's a Jackal.
Yes, trying to remember the name of it too.
Flame Blade Adept, I want to say it's named, or something like that.
1/2 menace that gets pumped.
I've played Hollow 1 in Modern, and I forget what this card's called.
It's a very forgettable Jackal.
Yeah, it's got menace. It pumps when you discard. There we go. Flame Blade Adept.
Remember.
All right.
Oh, cool.
But that's only until end of turn.
Sure.
On the Flame Blade Adept.
Plus 1 mana, 1/2.
Two.
Cycling.
Yes. Yeah. But even redundancy, if you want to get really aggressive and play the Hollow 1 and whatnot. But I don't think you need to. You could just play this in a deck with again, Inti, Avora, Blood Tithe Harvester, Detectives Phoenix, Psychic Frog if you're feeling nasty. And you can do some messed up stuff with all that.
All right, friends, that is going to do it for part 1 of our Aetherdrift set review. If you think we missed any cards, let us know in the comment section down below, and stay tuned for part 2. I've been Serge, joined by Anelli.
Hey, I was here.
A Wheeler.
I've got half my drink left.
Shout out to James for running tech.
I have 2 shoes.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Okay.
A reminder that everything we do is brought to you by you with the support of the Patreon over at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.